What is up, YouTube fam? And I guess Ecamm fam as well. It's my first time doing this. Sorry for being tardy. I mean, I doubt there's anyone watching me right now. Um, but yeah, the goal today is try something new. My name is Chris. Let me start by there. Trigger my lower third. I am the founder of a live studio, and today you're watching How to Copy and Steal. Today we're going to be doing something a little different. My goal is to just talk about my journey with Ecamm and what better place to start than with my first show that I helped put together using Ecamm. Before we get into that, I did want to say this show is sponsored by a live studio. Um, if you are looking to have a live show like what you're looking at right now, or more than that, whether you want multiple camera angles, a live event, webinar, hit us up at bookalivestudio.com. Um, yeah, you can book a discovery call. And yeah, I look forward to hearing from you. So, with all that said, let's get started in talking about my first journey with Ecamm. Um, I started using Ecamm in 2020. I believe the day I bought Ecamm was the day of my birthday, so it was a birthday present very much to myself. Um, I remember I was getting equipment. Like I had this grand idea. I moved out to San Diego right before the pandemic happened. Um, and I kind of got stuck out here. I was working remotely in a totally, completely different field. I was a senior product designer at a UX research company. Um, was making good money, but I definitely wasn't in love with what I was doing. And I started to lay down the groundwork on how I could create a creative agency or studio of my own. And it wasn't until I took on the duty of recording a podcast for one of my girlfriend's friends at the time that the idea started to spark, and I started to see the capabilities of what Ecamm was what was possible being done on Ecamm. Um, I remember first it started with like OBS, and then it was Streamlabs. Um, those did not last long. Those tools are, I don't know, for me, they kind of break my brain. They're kind of unintuitive, and it matters to me as a UX designer that something is intuitive. There's this term that we use in UX often called a WYSIWYG, and it stands for what you see is what you get. And when I came into Ecamm that first time, it was very apparent that what I was seeing was what I was getting. You see a video feed and you can drag and drop and click things, whereas all the other tools that I tried to use existing before, it was very much like you have to go into a certain drop down in order to be able to add that element in. And it's all built on drop downs and complicated menus, complicated terminology. You almost have to learn their terminology. That said, I will say like Ecamm isn't perfect. Like, so I can see how it can be overwhelming for those, for others that come in and like you see your windows all over the place, and you know, uh, it's definitely a build your own type of experience in terms of like how they lay it out. Definitely wish they had like a full screen element where things were like maybe in a locked position. Um, but yeah, so the first project I winded up taking on was a podcast called the Sports and Bullshit Podcast. Big shout out to Dan, Trevor, and fuck, why am I forgetting his name? It doesn't mean I don't love him any less. Just those were the two that I've seen. Aaron, big shout out to Aaron as well. Um, yeah. Um, so they were running a podcast essentially where they just talked about sports and bullshit. Is exactly as what it sounded like. They were going pretty strong. When I first had met them, they were an audio only podcast. And I wanted to like take on the work of like helping them out and seeing like how can we put this in a video format? How can we go live? How can we get engagement? How can I, build them a show? Very much when I first started off with Ecamm, I was blown away with all these things that you can do with live video, and it made me just start to think. I was like, wait, like who even needs to video edit anymore when you can do these things. You can get the basics out. I can trigger my intro. I can trigger my outro. I can trigger segments. I can talk to people remotely. And it was really empowering. And yeah, believe it or not, I got started fucking with some lightweight tools. My first initial cameras, actually, I have one of them laying right by me, surprisingly, and I'm actually using one, was a ZV-1. I love these things. These are like little pocket rocket cameras. If you know how to use them well and you know how to use settings right on a camera, you'd be surprised what you can get out of this. But yeah, my first initial setup was two ZV-1s and, believe it or not, an iPhone using Filmic Pro and their clean HDMI feed, and I had like a whole like lightning splitter to like a HDMI, and everything was kind of like daisy chained together. I remember I was learning like the hardest lessons. I was daisy chaining like so much of my cameras into like little USB dongles like this, and they were blazing hot, like literally leaving marks on my desk. And I was just learning everything. I winded up getting the one thing I did choose to invest in was audio, because audio is everything, especially when it comes to a podcast. Audio is more than 50% of the experience. Um, so yeah, I winded up getting a Roadcaster, and I winded up getting it with the whole like kit, the whole Roadcaster, four Rode Pod mics, the arms and everything. And at the time, I got it for a pretty sweet deal. And that was my like production studio. I winded up getting like other lights and things. At the time, I was living downtown San Diego, in a loft, because I wanted to be bougie during the pandemic, and that loft was really cheap. And I always wanted to live in a loft growing up. So yeah, we started with filming there. They did come in with existing branding. They did come in with a logo, and they definitely had like all the ideas of what they wanted their show to look like and feel like. And they were very, easy to work with from that standpoint in regards to just like getting things done, and like, you know, they allowed me the time to figure stuff out and see if it worked. At the end of the day, they always left with their audio file, so like we were making sure that like we weren't, going down in quality. We were only stepping forward in quality. Um, but yeah, let me start over on their YouTube channel, and let's switch over this scene. Okay, so I got my screen recording here. Let's get into it. So this was their channel. This was their channel, after the rebrand I had given them. Um, Again, when I started to work for them, I was really just like flexing and seeing like, all right, what can I do with Ecamm? Turns out you can do a hell of a lot. So let's go to their videos over here, and let's start with this first one down here. Wow, 2 years ago. Feels like ages. So we can start here. I'll lower their, I'll mute their volume for now. This was the logo that they had existingly came up with. For me, I just slapped this into like Canva really quickly, whipped this up. Actually, this probably isn't Canva. This is probably me doing stuff in Figma. I was definitely was not using Canva at that time. So yeah, this was like what they came with. I just took their existing logo. I think they had these emoji guys from I think it's from Snapchat, if I'm not understanding it correctly. But yeah, they came in with this. It was pretty cool. Like they at the time, like everyone on YouTube, and I think still everyone on YouTube is very much using the blue and red color schemes for all their videos. Um, let's see. Let me just hit play here and just click through. Um, so yeah, like we had basic angles. I think what you're looking at here is my Sony ZV-1. Look at me in the background. Um, so yeah, like this was my early days of shooting. Boy, have we come a long way from then. Now I know how to set up lights so that you don't see them in the frame. Didn't know that was going to be important. Um, and I definitely wouldn't have had Travis behind the kitchen or in front of the kitchen as well. Um, but yeah, this what you're seeing here right now is a simple. I think it was a 2 or 3 camera setup. I was going back and forth between them. I wasn't big on the whole side by side frames here. When I first started, my company was the Copy and Steal Studio. As you guys all know, that is pivoted now. Now we are Live Studios, and Copy and Steal is the content that we put out. So I triggered things like ads for myself, where the guys were able to shout me out. At this time, I was very much doing the work either for free or for very low rate at this point, I believe. Um, but yeah, this was just me proving the concept. Oh wow, I had my even I had a producer cam. I guess this is just my webcam connected to my computer. Um, and I also would do like just fixed lower thirds. That said, I mean, I'm not a big fan of fixed lower thirds. I mean, we get it. We know who's talking. But it works. This was actually the wide cam from the phone. Oh man, I gotta boost up this quality real quick just to make sure like we're seeing this as crispy as possible. Um, but yeah, like you can see the difference, the color difference when you go from a phone to a camera angle. So yeah, when we first started with them, it was basic, just camera angles and audio and interacting. I'm not sure if we did go live at this point. I think all of these were recorded locally. Um, we also did do screen shares at one point. I'm a very big like I love to use the tools and things that I have at hand. So for this instance, like I was using Google's scorekeeper and how they keep stats for games, and you know we used it as our own UI for the show. You know what I mean? Like so that they can go over stats, they can see these things. Oh wow, look at that choppiness down there. But yeah, that was a little bit about this episode. Moving forward, we winded up getting like a hell of a lot serious with the. Oh, look, I did do a side by side. I guarantee you, I came up with that on the spot. I was just me like, I just wanted another wide angle, and I most likely just created that scene like either in a preview mode or something like that. Um, so yeah, this was the first video episode. It definitely wasn't their episode one at the time. I think they had gotten close to like 100 episodes of audio, which was one of the reasons why I wanted to work with them because they were being super consistent. Um, all right, let's go into a later episode here. We started to kind of like really brand them and moving forward maybe like a couple episodes after that, and by branding them I literally just took their existing logo and I kind of made it a black and white graphic, and then I chose to use yellow as their brand color, and as you can see like everything here was pretty much thought of by myself in regards to the thumbnails, the styles, you know, using their emojis here to like, you know, segmentize their videos. Oftentimes, what we would do is like we would record the full episode and then I would take out these segments and then post them up separately. So, like power rankings, MVP, and just different subjects that they talked about. This, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think this was before uh, YouTube had like titles, not titles, chapters in videos. So it made sense for people to be like cutting up their long form content into these smaller, bite size, you know, views. Things are like 9 minutes, 14 minutes, rather than someone sitting down and watching the whole show. Um, what I will say is, like, as I started to work with them, the one thing that I loved doing at the loft was I loved using my projector screen in the background, and using that as a means to like give them their own like set design of a show. Like, you're watching ESPN and they got the screen that they can touch on the board, or like, just get real fancy with it. I can show this episode here. Oh, what is going on here? Why is that not playing? Oh, I zoomed in. That's why. um, let's see if that goes. Oh, so this was one example where I didn't. Oh, I only had two ZV-1s at the time, so I was always like put in that predicament of like, like, how do I split two cameras for three people? In this case, I thought I was fancy, and I gave one camera to two, and another camera to the third, and then I kind of placed the cameras. I was trying to like fake the funk that this was like one ultra wide scene. It's definitely not. You can definitely see the seam in the middle here. But yeah, like it was pretty cool. I loved what I was able to get out of it. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, oh yes, this was also when I started to do like other assets for them. So the goal was to showcase things on the screen, like their rundown, or like what are they talking about today? What are the segments of the show? Um, so we created this idea called the rundown. And I created a little graphic. And what's cool is like the graphic could take over the whole screen, as you always know, and Ecamm has the ability to do. But I also had like the third angle, where it was like them behind the couch. And what you're looking at here is all cell phone footage. You can see the two ZV-1s in the middle of there. I wonder why my mouse cursor is not being highlighted. Let me see if I can fix that really quickly. I'll make my mouse super big. Let's see. There we go. I like that. I like that better. And then we can show mouse clicks. Let me even make it a little bigger. Okay, cool. Yes, I like that. All right. Back to the show. Um, so yeah, I was able to yeah, put the TV up here, and I created a nice little like show experience. Hindsight is always 2020 when thinking about like how you would reorganize things. I'm big into like trying to organize wires, even though it's not always like something you can afford to do. Like, it's just the nature of what we're doing here when we go live, and like filming things live, and cameras have to be plugged in. I do remember at this time, I don't know if I was using dummy batteries. Maybe I was. No, I was not. At this time, I was not using dummy batteries. I was literally plugging in HDMI cords into capture cards, and I was also plugging in the ZV-1 cameras through power via their micro USB port, the old Android charge port. Um, Looking back at it, like I should have started with dummy batteries. Dummy batteries are the way to go, like always, especially when it comes to streaming. So you just don't have to worry about that stuff. Um, at the time, I remember ZV-1s were like they were due for an update so that they can work out of box as a webcam. That didn't come really until later, and then when it did come, it was limited. It was like it was locked at 720p, and I think it's still very much like that. I think the only cameras that can go live at 1080 at least are like the A7 IV and the A7 IIIS, maybe the FX. I think the FX can probably go live at 4K. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, this is an example of, how we got this done. Um, yeah, let me click around, see if there's more scenes. No, no. All right, let's move into when I really started to do things like the rebrand and the whole idea of like segments. Started to get really like interactive with things, and allowed them to do some really cool stuff. I mean, or cool in my mind, I would say. Um, we did start to switch up the set a little bit. Like sitting down wasn't always the move. I remember when we moved to the table in the middle of the room. Let me click this one and see what this one was. So yeah, started off like the page, started the whole like aesthetic. I remember at this point was when I started to do things in Google Slides, and like I created a template for them in Google Slides so that they can go in and add all their information and add like who their top players of the NFL were, or who their, you know what I mean? Like they could add their certain stats for whatever they were talking about. Um, so yeah, at this point, I think this was still couch setup. Had the whole logo in the background. Definitely switched up the back rundown view with the back of the heads. Um, what else? So was some of the graphics here. I would be super like savvy with it. I would literally just take these screenshots from Google in regards to like just getting it done. You know what I mean, work smart, not hard. Like why create all this stuff from scratch when it exists somewhere already and we can copy and steal and make it our own. So that's a pure example there of how I copied and stole something and repurposed it for myself. As a means to just make life easier. Like everything is a drop in a bucket, so why make everything custom? um, let's see if I get back here. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Oh, okay. I like this. There we go. So this was a segment for the wild card weekend, and then we had like Aaron's 2020 NFL MVP or like runner up in the MVP. And I created these little graphics here to like illustrate like if someone went up or down or someone's new. Or someone stayed in their locked position. Let me turn up the volume. That was the intro for his segment.
That is lit.
Dude, hell of a segue. We're at the end of this. I kind of already know who the MVP is. I think the majority of everyone that's paid attention this year.
There you go. So
Eric Henry,
I just created these like layouts on like I said, it was just a template on Google Slides. I think I actually might have used a pre-made template for this Google Slide whole thing. I wish I had the actual project to like go into and show you how things were built. But yeah, it was just simple, just slides. The reason why I chose slides over anything else was just because I knew that everyone has a Google account, everyone has a Gmail, so they could access it, and I didn't have to ask them to download like a Prezi or something, custom and really particular. Again, I like to work smart, not hard. Um, so yeah, this was like again like allowing that graphic to take over the full screen, and this is just me presenting that presentation. Um, what else? Yeah, we're just giving them slots and giving them basic like spaces to add things that are relevant to them and what they're talking about. Um, all right, what else? What else? What else? What else here? A Yeah, yeah, they had a whole bunch of different templates. I was really proud of this work. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of this project was like the beginning doorway into like, holy shit, like this can be a career, and I'm actively, pursuing that. I'm actively making
we'll get
this a
some
career
updates
Yeah,
here.
in regards to making shows for people and giving everyone the ability to have their own, at this case, ESPN. Uh, so yeah, let's. I want to showcase maybe two more episodes. We've had episodes where they had on guests. This one was a good one with Gray's banana pudding. Um, let's see. This one was a remote guest. First time I ever did a remote guest. Oh man, they tried to play music in the beginning. This was one of the like. I learned all my lessons with them in terms of like, man, we can't do those things. You can't play music. You can't like you get in trouble for almost everything. Um, this was when we had switched over to the whole like table layout. I really think that my whole living room and couch setup is like tucked behind there in my little bedroom nook. Um, but yeah, this was it. Like we got it done with this cheap Amazon table. Oh man, this thing was so rickety. You would hear them fucking, if they breathed, it would creak. But it worked. And I don't know how I attached those mm, pod arms. I think I wanted them to like keep them as still as possible. Um, this episode, I think, was one of the first times they had brought someone on remotely. Um, I remember at the time, Ecamm, they did have their interview feature, but they didn't have the ability for me to put someone's face on the screen. So what I did to basically work around this was I used Zoom. I used Zoom, and I ended up sharing my screen, which I was using the projector as a secondary display, and I was just sharing that secondary display through Ecamm, and that's how I was getting the pass through there, and also like I had the pass through audio from Ecamm to Zoom. Also, what you can see here in front of them is oftentimes I had a monitor in front of them. In this case, this monitor was my iPad. Um, Fucking AirPlay is amazing. Apple is amazing when it comes to continuity and just all the wireless things. I mean, right now I'm a big fan of using just the wireless cam situation when you can get a wireless camera via your phone. So yeah, that was how I accomplished them being able to see the guest in real time, but still being able to switch among the guest and back and forth. So I'll just play it here. I know I
Looks
definitely
fire. Got the no pressure sweatshirt.
don't want to do that. Yeah, so we had this scene here where, I just did the screen share and it was them on the bottom left. So yeah, definitely wish I could have, got rid of all the Zoom UI and things like that. At the time, I didn't know how to do these things, but we figured it out. And I think now, I mean, now if I want to do all this, it's all basically built into Ecamm, and you can just send that feed of whoever you're talking to, your guest, onto like a separate display so that it makes it more of an interactive experience. I think what you're looking at here is a crop on one of the ZV1s. I think it was like a situation where like, oh no, I think Aaron and Daniel had their own camera, and oh no, that is a wide camera. Okay, yeah, that is me cropping in on one ZV1. So that's why you can see it looks a little blurry, it looks a little fuzzy, but it gets the job done. My little slight set design stuff. Got some plants, keeping things green. Um, but yeah, let's move forward to an episode where they had someone in person, and then I'll show you the last episode I did with them. As you can see, like things are starting to get better. Like it used to have like starting soon screens, so that we could get people in the room and talking before the episode started. This was a cool episode where it was a collab, and like I just used the background footage here as a means to like co-brand who they were chalking with at the time. uh, Gray's, I think it was Gray's banana pudding. Fucking bomb. I don't know if they exist anymore. But I didn't have banana pudding before then, and that is how I judge every banana pudding moving forward. So shout out to Gray's. Yeah, more like cropped angles of things. Yeah, I think in this situation, it was just a three camera setup. I had one in the middle of the table shooting down at them, which is what you're seeing right here. Then I had one off angle shooting across the table into both guys, so like they would share a camera. Um, but yeah, like I think oftentimes I would like to have like different scenes set up, like scenes definitely for everyone to talk their stuff. But then I also had scenes where like it was just the left side of the table or the right side of the table, without the crops. So yeah, just like what I loved about Ecamm is like how you can fake the funk, how you can turn one camera into fucking as many as you want. So yeah, this was a prime example of doing so. What else? Let's take it to the last episode. I don't think we did any segments or for this one. I think this was just a pure interview for this episode. Um, all right, let's take it to the last one here, and then let's bring it all the way back. So when this episode started, this was when I created a an intro for them. So yeah, like I did the whole timer thing. You know what I mean? Like it was. I love Ecamm, man. Every episode got exponentially better. I'm gonna let this play out just for old shits and giggles.
Side into the end zone, jump ball, and it is. Is it caught? Is it caught? Oh my goodness, it's caught! DeAndre Hopkins caught it! He caught it!
Look at that was sick, Chris.
Dope. And as you can tell, this was like the new setup. This was when I moved out of that loft. Um, really wish I would have closed that those curtains there. I don't know why I got the curtains up and you can see everything that I'm doing back there. What are you doing, Chris? Um, but yeah, I loved playing with like separate angles. I loved doing like these triptych scenarios where like it's another version of having them all on camera. And I think at this point I may have had a third ZV1 in the mix, or maybe I got my A7C at that point. As of right now, I've got like what, three ZV1s. I got two ZV10s. I got two A6000s, and I have one A7C. So we got cameras. We got a bunch of ways to get feeds. This was also another episode where they talked to someone remotely. I think this was a situation where I actually used Ecamm's interview mode for this one, and actually like put them down in the left bottom corner. It was pretty cool. But yeah, this is I think I'm at the end of this video. Oh wait, no, this is a great example of another thing that I did and learned. So I did learn how to do screen sharing, and the one thing was like I wanted to make it more hands free for myself so that the guys could kind of bring in elements, bring in videos and things. I didn't really have to trigger them. So what you're seeing here is literally a live screen share from Daniel's phone here. And I've decided to be cute with it and just overlay like a phone PNG. You can see the edges of the phone poking out here. This was before they had the ability to bring in the corner radiuses on the video that you're looking at. Definitely do not like that. But yeah, a lot of times for me, when I would create scenes, oftentimes when I first started, I was creating scenes in like Figma or Illustrator and just bringing in these transparent PNGs and overlaying them on top. While I love to do that, it oftentimes leaves you very fixed, and you're forced to have to go back and forth between something you're designing in and Ecamm. Now Ecamm has quite more capability in order to like build these scenes in here, and you can build them with separate pieces and things like that. But yeah, I think it's almost better to build and design in Ecamm rather than going about like the PNG route. I think the PNG route works for those who can't trust themselves and who are like prone to just like messing things up. But even then, so like Ecamm has the ability to lock scenes so that you don't really have to like take that chance on yourself. um but yeah, I think that is about it. I will leave that there. Let me come back over here and sign off. I did not promote this live at all. Was not expecting people to be in the room. I'm very nervous right now. So yeah, I'm just, the only way forward is to get started and just going through. And this is actually what I'm trying to do right now. My goal is to stay accountable. I'm going to plan another one for next week, going over another portfolio project of mine. I don't know which one I'll be doing just yet, but the thumbnail will be up. Goal is to make clips of this and push people to this footage. But yeah, my goal is just to give back and teach others how I create shows on Ecamm. I think we tend to think about shows a little differently here at a live studio. We don't believe in just creating viral content. We believe in creating content that's built around business goals. We believe in, creating content that, it's going to act as a drop in a bucket, but it's heading you towards the right direction. Whether you're selling a service or your expertise in something, that is what we want to do. We want to build a true audience for you, not just a viral audience that can be here one day and not here the next. We want to, you know, build that cultish following with you where it's like one person at a time. People are in the live chat, they're engaging with you, they are, able to ask questions and able to pick up on your expertise of whatever you're trying to do. If that's a personality, if you're a cook, if you're a coach, um, we want to work with you. So yeah, again, this episode is sponsored by a live studio. I'm gonna put the little promo down there. If you're interested in starting a live show with us, please go to bookalivestudio.com. Right. Oh, pointing the wrong way. Right here. Um, and yeah, you'll see all of our information there. You'll see our projects there. You'll see our capabilities and how we push Ecamm to what I think the limits are. We've used Ecamm for everything from workout videos. I used it for a parade once. Like I literally gave a local town their own equivalent of like a Macy's Day Parade. Um, but yeah, like we don't see any limits or bounds on what we can do with Ecamm. And what I'm trying to do with this show is kind of show you how I push the bounds of Ecamm and hopefully inspire you, the Ecamm fam out there, to, you know, help push Ecamm a little further, and use it for these things. Like it's more than just this, let me go live in my own station. You can essentially build your own TV network with this thing. It is that powerful. Um, and my goal is to show you all that. So thank you all for joining me. Again, my name is Chris, and you just watched another episode of How to Copy and Steal. Oh, this whole thing is called Designing a Show 101. So bye, everybody.